perpetually green. Okay,
I'd be in trouble.
Think we're good?
We're starting.
marvelous. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday night. Thank you for coming to the small business meeting. We only have one item on the agenda, and it is, well, I won't say short and sweet. It is just one item. So, food truck ordinance. So Keith and I went through all of the edits that we as a committee had come up with for that ordinance and kind of dove in a little bit more to the nitty gritty of those and put together this sample ordinance, which I have emailed to all of you. Sorry, it is from the wrong email, but you
I
got
got a
it.
hard copy too, if anyone
And a hard copy.
at the red line.
I know that I did not send it too terribly long ago, but what are we feeling? The big edits are that we added the definition, which is sort of an amalgamation of what CFTA uses and what the state of Ohio uses, sort of combined to fit our purposes. When we met last, we talked about will you explain the accessory use or primary use?
Okay.
Because this made much more sense to me when you explained it than when we talked about it. What we thought that meant was kind of wrong.
Not what it is.
But it makes more sense now.
Okay.
A primary use is a use you're allowed to use. So like a residential, you're allowed to have a house, or church is you're going to have worship services. An accessory use is something that naturally goes with that, that we're going to allow. If you have this use, then you can have this thing too. So I think outdoor dining might be one for a restaurant. For churches, there are a couple, but a gym, for example, is not one for a church, but like Sunday school classes would be. And so it's very limited, and it's limited by what the primary use is. So it's just not appropriate here unless, in theory, you could make it an accessory use to a restaurant, but that kind of defeats the purpose on the same parcel.
Yeah.
So we talked about, when we discussed it, we said we think that it should be able to be a primary or accessory use. But when we talked about it together, it made way more sense to only have it be an accessory use or only have it be a primary use.
You want to have a primary use, and then the question is, in which districts is it allowed as of right? In which districts is it a conditional use? And in which districts is it not allowed? And that would be the three kind of categories for.
So I want to make it real concrete just from my brain. So I'm thinking about the truck, and I wish I had all the names. The one with the ice cream parlor. So the parlor.
Mexican Village.
Thank you, Mexican Village. So the ice cream parlor would be the primary use, and then the food truck would be secondary?
If the food truck is on the parcel.
It is.
Then it would depend on the specifics of exactly what code you're looking at. Like
Okay.
generally, it's the use of a building. But yeah, I would think that might fall into, it depends on, I'm not going to go into the specific, I don't know the specifics of ours of how that would work. For example, if you've got, you got a restaurant, and then outside you've got like a rolling barbecue grill that you cook, that seems to me to be part of the use of the restaurant. But most trucks like that, if you're going to have a mobile thing by your restaurant, the idea would be to have it in the street, and it would be as opposed to being on the parcel. You know what I mean? And so that could be at the street in any commercial district. But
why
I mean,
would it
we're
be
getting into
so
some hardcore. I mean, I would say as a practical matter, it doesn't. What you're really talking about is where can you operate a food truck on property?
Yeah.
And if it's a place, and if you're going to allow it under the code, I would think it would follow where restaurants are allowed, kind of would be, at the very least, if there's a restaurant use is allowed, then the food truck use would be allowed on that parcel as well. So I think for that kind of situations, it would be kind of a moot point, whether it's an accessory or a primary.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Under
so it's
that,
just,
so-
it's allowed already, basically, because the restaurants are allowed there. And I think it makes sense to have it be basically wherever restaurants are allowed. Same
That's
thing.
perhaps more limited than you think, but
Well, as at a minimum, let's say.
You'd want
Yeah.
office buildings as
Yes, that is true. So I'm trying to remember the list of all the zoning areas. We have obviously commercial,
It's in our
on-
email.
It's in our email,
Yeah.
thank you.
I don't think that's really easy to read.
And I had it up and then it went away. That's cool.
Same.
We love that.
Yeah,
for
and off
us.
the top of my head, I don't remember what districts, because restaurants
is.
are they're not Class A retail,
Oh.
I don't remember.
We've got their initials, CBD, M1, NBD, that's the neighborhood business district, residential office. What is M1?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
Thank you.
And M2 is also manufacturing.
And
They're
then
different classes.
CBD,
Community Business District, or Central Business
Central.
District, rather.
and then that's mixed-use residential.
So for me, obviously, CBD, GBD, I don't see any reason why it couldn't also be in like the M1 parcels.
That's kind of where food trucks got their start.
Yeah,
Was
M1,
rolling up for
M2.
lunch.
Yeah, yeah. And then the NBD, the neighborhood business districts. I mean, that's where there are already businesses operating. So that seems logical to me. For instance, I'm looking at the plot on Sherman and Allison at the Sunoco, where that one food truck is. So,
Oh, yeah.
then O is other or
Is that an office park?
office.
O is office.
Office. So maybe just everything that's not
R.
zoned R.
And then in residential, it's allowed under the next piece, which is by invitation for a special event.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It wouldn't normally be there.
So it's not there
Yeah.
24/7.
And it's not
Now,
like
is
an
that-
ice cream truck rolling around. That's not a parking
Right.
situation.
Is that in their driveway or in front of their house on the street?
I mean, streets are public parking, so there's no reason why they couldn't be in the street.
Yeah.
Well, that would be another question is, do you want food trucks to just be able to operate on the street?
they're
Anywhere,
in
anywhere they feel like it.
I think we talked about
Whenever
this
they
a little
feel like
bit
it.
when we met
Yeah.
too. Did we want to include like a distance? And I thought like within reason was fine. Like if somebody's house is at the end of the street and their food truck parks at the top of the block and is like, oh, well, I'm invited by these people. But I think like within reason, I mean,
We had talked about, at one point, a time limit on when you could be parked on the street as a way of allowing residential use.
and there is allowed residential use. We just didn't specify a time limit because we figured the city's parking laws cover
Yeah.
that.
Right.
That would be
that kind of-
72 hours.
That's 72 hours.
And I think that if a food truck is parked on a residential street for 72 hours and like fully operational, that's
Someone's going to have something to
Someone's
say about
we'll
that.
hear about it.
Yeah.
That's
So yeah, for me at least, it seems reasonable and logical to just say everything that's not any of the R districts. And that's where they are currently operating to. So that's good.
Keith, would it be beneficial for us to add, because in section D, it says that they can't conduct business or commercially operate on any private, oh, well, there's a typo.
Well, it also does say specific, during a specific defined period in there.
Right.
So don't we
but-
need a specific defined period?
I guess that would be what the permit would be for.
And my thought is we need to accommodate for places that have a lease that do not need to apply for like a special events permit. I think that like if you are on private property, how do we accommodate for the places that are like at a gas station and have a lease with a gas station? And then they don't need to be permitted through the city in order to be operating.
Okay, that's
The
the
business owner,
residential.
property owner or whatever.
Section E, I'm trying to remember.
Because it says they can't operate unless it is under section E, and then E says they may be permitted to temporarily conduct or commercially operate on private or public streets, lots, or property for a special celebration, assemblage, event, parade, or ancillary private event catering during a specified defined period only if approved and authorized in writing. So I feel like that doesn't account for the places that are like permanent or semi-permanent or whatever at gas stations and at businesses. So can we just add something in there about,
Yeah. Okay, should have taken a deeper dive into this before I came, but I didn't have the time.
I feel like I missed that the first time I looked over this. And then I know we talked about when we met, doing things about like not blocking the right of way, not serving into the street. But we figured that wasn't necessary because there's nothing in our city code that would allow for that. So
Yeah,
it's
for
like
any vehicle.
Very clearly breaking the law no matter
Yeah.
what. So it probably doesn't need to be specified in here again. You just can't sell things into the street no matter what you're selling or how you're selling it.
Right.
Just can't.
I have a question. There was an issue way back at the beginning of this about the definition of a food truck.
Yeah, it's
And-
up top.
Right. My question is that sufficient? Because the conversation seemed to be about wanting to define single axle, double axle. There was a whole lot of discussion around that, and I didn't know if we needed to specify or if simply saying it's a food truck sort of up here, it covers everything.
I think when we talked about the like single and double axle, the feedback from the truck owners was that like some people who have trailers, they are single axle. And so I don't feel like we need to specify, I mean, from the city's perspective, what Noah was just asking for is that we have a definition. I don't believe that he had any kind of, the definition has to include this or
Such
this.
specificity.
Yeah,
I
I think
think-
we got really caught up on the axle thing last time, and I think,
Defining it more broadly just makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah.
That way.
and I can't really think of much circumstance where whether if the food
Double or
truck
single
has
makes
double
sense.
or single
Yeah.
axles will make a difference in terms of the
I think there
legality.
was some question about like a hot dog cart.
Well, and this says that the definition also includes any cart, concession, cooking equipment, or related trailer.
That is attached to a vehicle. But yeah, so this is, the idea is a commercial motor vehicle. So that is the food truck. It's got to be a commercial motor vehicle. And then if you have something that is temporarily parked and used in relation to or is attached to the vehicle, that would include carts, concessions, cooking equipment, that kind of thing. So,
Would
Makes
that
sense.
include the smoker that is not attached?
that would not, I mean, if you're just going to have a separate grill, unless it's used, is temporarily parked and used in relation to the food truck, then it would be a part of it. If not, then
Okay.
it's just somebody's rolling grill, and I'm not sure what happens to that under the code. I'm assuming
But
you
if it
could do a.
is specifically used for that cooking. I'm thinking
Yeah,
the other
the-
one is right up in Pleasant Ridge. There's another one that has an outdoor
Well, the
smoker.
barbecue truck in Surrey Square uses a smoker too.
Right, that's the one I'm
I
talking
mean, it's
about.
kind
There's a
of,
couple of barbecue joints that have an outside grill, like with their brick and mortar places. And so that seems to be pretty common, like as you go up to Pleasant Ridge.
Like Knockback Matt's.
Do what?
Knockback Matt's has a smoker outside. And usually Kitty's does.
Okay.
But that's with a
downtown.
business.
Yeah,
And I'm just
brick and
wanting to make sure that we are including
Okay.
these folks, so that they're not.
Under
okay,
state statute, there are guidelines about that, which we looked at last time. About they have to be fenced off, public can't access them, they have to have like a physical barrier around the equipment. It has to follow all other like food safety guidelines.
Yeah, just to go back, so I started this with what came out of the planning commission, right? And the planning commission version was, the normal function of food truck service shall be directed and permitted to operate on a public or private street in accordance with a separate business license. And so that's the language I have. What I did was I took out instead of no mobile food truck, cart trailer or similar vendor shall be permitted to conduct business or commercially operate on any private or public lot or property, which is where the planning commission was. And I basically changed that. It's just a mobile food truck has to meet the compliances of our section 311.04, chapter 739, and if you're going to park it, part 1111 and 1159.09. So it's subject to our general business regulations. And then said nothing about where, because our code doesn't say anything about where now. But that essentially, yeah, no residential without a special permit to temporarily be there. Thinking like we're gonna have a block party.
Yeah.
Right, that kind of a process where you're gonna ask for it in advance and from the service safety director, and he will issue a permit for you to operate it in a residential area, and can add conditions on it, like these hours. Because my nightmare was just when Sam first said, here's what we want from the committee was, people ought to be able to have them in there, if you're gonna have it on your street or whatever. And my thought was Xavier party, that they're gonna have tacos until 2 a.m. on
And
Wednesday.
we talked
during
about that.
finals week, right? You know what I mean? Or during, when they start school. And that was my nightmare. So there's,
And we talked about that, and like, in that sort of situation, that would probably be violating noise complaints too.
Right.
Like, that would be after quiet hours or whatever.
well, the noise code is really about amplified sound
Sure.
and instruments as opposed to just people talking loudly. And after a couple of drinks, Xavier students are loud. There don't have to be many of them, but if you've got this thing, we're going to have this here, in addition to the party houses anyway, how many people are just going to gravitate to that spot? But to have some, and no matter where it is, if you're going to have it, for a graduation, whatever it is, nobody wants to have the food truck going at 2 a.m.
Right.
in front of their house. And so that would be the idea. Is that you can have it on this block, submit the application, and you can have it on this block, and between these hours and these conditions and that kind of thing. That was my thinking in the residential
That makes sense.
area. So
Yeah, I
that's
don't want anyone to
the
have to-
subsection E.
Hear the hooting and hollering of Xavier students ever, but especially not.
Yeah.
Or smell pizza at 2 a.m.
That's mean.
No.
But, yeah.
Woken up to the smell of pizza. Wafting to
So I feel like I want to make sure that we're accommodating for the folks who are leasing space at businesses. And I don't know if that means we need to change language in here.
Well, here's my question. As it stands right now, is there a problem for food truck operators at the BP lot or at the Surrey Square or wherever that I have a truck set up and I'm operating? Do they have a problem with the code as it is now, our code?
Not our code, but I think the idea of this ordinance specifically was that it would offer some level of protection to those trucks so that they would not be going through this again next, year or next year after that
Council,
or whatever.
13 months from now, we'll have a new council and who knows what they're going to want to do. So,
Maybe.
you never have that protection from changing the code.
But I think someone could feasibly complain and say that they were violating this code the way that it's written, because this says they have to be permitted. And if they are not filling out an event permit 10 days in advance to function in their leased space, why would they have to?
I'm curious, is there anybody in lease space in a residential zone?
Does this only
The
apply to
residential
residential zones?
The part that says, no mobile food truck shall conduct business or commercially
Oh, it
operate on
genuinely
any
does
private
say
or
right in
public
front.
Yeah.
street, lot
You
of
know what?
property within any
So we're good.
residential
Thoroughly
or
disregard.
neighborhood business district. And I'm not sure what Ameristop, if that's neighborhood business district or if it's general
Yeah.
or if it's, I don't know what the zoning is there. So I don't know where all the other trucks might be.
So,
So,
I mean,
but that,
potentially you
those
just
are
take
those are
that-
the two, because those are the two that are very restrictive on what you're allowed to use.
Yes.
So,
Maristop looks like it's an R2.
No, Ameristop is an MBD
I think it's an MBD.
because
Where?
I see a little tiny sliver of purple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
like where
oh
my
my-
shop was,
It's tiny.
it was all
So
residential.
cute.
Okay, not for old eyes.
Yeah.
I know, there's a lot on this map.
So
Yeah, I mean,
but
the NB
hypothetically, you can just take MBD out and just have it be all residential, and then that kind of covers everything that currently exists and everything wherever that logically
Yeah.
or reasonably
could
you
be.
could
Yeah.
reasonably for a reasonable person you would expect to see a food truck.
That's
You-
my bad. I didn't catch that
Yeah.
said residential. Somehow my brain.
and that's
skipped
the thing. You guys should look at the map and figure
Yeah.
out where the NBDs are, because that one next to the high school, that's not such a big deal. Birdies might be more of a big deal on that corner. And so there's other ones, and they were just like, here's where there were like 3 or 4 storefronts on this corner. But the idea is like, we're not just going to ban any commercial use of a building that has to be an apartment or a house, because it wasn't built for that.
For instance, where my old shop used to be is in BD. And that's not a good place for a lot of businesses, but because it had a storefront built into that place, it was this tiny little nook that was allowed by zoning.
And like where Starlight is,
Right.
which is just like jammed between houses.
Yep.
They're in a little one.
I do have, for discussion at some point, some feedback from the fire department about permit fees. So whenever you're ready for that.
Yeah, I saw your email. Sorry, I can't get into my email right now,
That's
so I'm
fine.
kind of useless on there. I do want to just talk through the process of this really quickly because I did not expect this to be the process, but also I've never done an ordinance from scratch before, so I don't know. Once we reach a point where we feel comfortable with this proposed, all of our edits, all of our amendments, we will have to put the original proposed ordinance back into council for council to vote on and I would hope vote down.
Right.
And then we would have to take this back to planning commission.
Council would pass a resolution asking the planning commission to consider the
This
text of
is
whatever
version.
ordinance you guys want to propose and send that back to planning commission. I would be comfortable with making, if you were to make a little tweak in what the planning commission sent, that's probably okay. This is rewriting entirely, and so
Yeah.
I don't want to.
If we vote it down, can we start from scratch without having to go back to the planning commission or?
Not if you want to adopt a zoning ordinance that makes serious changes to what they propose.
Okay.
And this would be a rewriting of that, so.
And I think it would probably be a wise idea for as many of us as possible to attend a planning commission meeting where this is on the agenda, so we can just talk about our thought process and why we made the edits that we made, and if
Yeah.
any truck owners want to come to that as well.
I think that makes sense. I think for me, I'm comfortable, especially we just take out that part where it says the neighborhood business district.
Yeah.
Take that out. I think it'd be great to send this on, as soon as we can, so we can hopefully, talk to them and see how they feel about it and knows, so that the food truck owners know that we are making progress.
Yes. What's your fire? I already know, but will you share with the class,
Sure.
please?
So the Ohio Administrative Code, the fire department gave me the section that applies to food trucks, if we need to refer to that in there at all. The second thing is, the fire department suggests two different options. One would be, if we want to be consistent, then every mobile food unit is treated like every business, which means they should get a $50 permit inspection. If we want to be focused on safety, then the Norwood Fire Department is okay accepting any Ohio municipalities inspection. So if, for instance, you went to Blue Ash or down or proper Cincinnati, and they gave you a permit, they would accept that. So either way, they're making sure that it's been inspected for fire or fire code or whatever, either from another municipality or from us. And they don't necessarily care which one happens, but they've given us that's important to them to have one of those.
And I know what my thought process is, but I would like to know what y'all's opinion is. And which one of those is preferential.
Just, that, what you're talking about now is business regulation. We don't involve the planning commission. It would be a separate ordinance as
Right.
far as regulating these. I don't know what they do now, so
Okay.
that's all I.
So
can't
the resolution that you're talking about is just for zoning change.
Right.
Okay, and this would be a whole ordinance about, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, it's something about the regulation of the operation of the business that's allowed, essentially. And so that's a separate, and I don't know, I know that there's a lot of state regulations on food trucks, but I don't know exactly what Norwood does, either from the health department or the fire department or anybody else as far as inspecting or any of the rest of that.
The health department inspects it, but the way it's currently written, I don't think they need a fire inspection unless they operate outside of around here. Then you go to Blue Ash or you go to Cincinnati to get your fire inspection, to go to like a flea market thing at Summit Park or something like that.
Okay.
My thought is I'm happy with them. I would like for us to honor a fire inspection by any
Okay.
municipality within the state of Ohio.
That was my feeling.
I want to be as welcoming as possible to food trucks, and I think requiring them to get another fire inspection done if they just had one last week from the state of Cincinnati, requiring them to pay an extra fee, schedule an
Yeah.
inspection, I think is a lot.
I feel like food trucks are equally flammable everywhere.
They will catch on fire in the same way most places, I would say.
Yeah, so I don't think a food truck from Blue Ash is differently flammable here in Norwood than in Blue Ash, so.
And it would save our time, it would save our department's time.
Yes, and I want them to, make sure they have time to focus on if there is a bigger thing going on. Not that that's not important. Sorry, scratching
I
the
think
walls.
that's the radiator.
It's the radiator.
All right.
Rutland.
All right, not aliens, it's good.
So the only edit that we want to make to this currently is just to remove neighborhood business district from the wording.
Yes, I believe that is at least what I
Okay.
have said.
Mrs. Hoover, what are your thoughts?
Pulling it back up. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I think that's a good place to start, and a part of this, I think, is because the planning commission decided we don't want them, there wasn't a lot of discussion about where they might be allowed, if they are going to be allowed where and under what conditions and that kind of thing. And so this seems to me to say, well, council's not going for that, for what you want. We should have more of a discussion about the ins and outs and all the details of it. And so sending it back, I think, will then allow more room for that kind of a conversation.
And then this gives us time to add it to the, I can kick it back to council at the next meeting.
Let's not do it on Monday.
We have enough going on Monday,
Yeah.
but
I have
can I verbally
spent
kick it
hours
back to
drafting
council
stuff from
at the next meeting? Like, do I have to say it out loud?
In new business, you could say.
In new business, can I
for
say,
next.
I'd like to put this issue back in?
Wouldn't you just
Council.
vote it, wouldn't you just report it out of this committee and then
I don't know what.
we would,
Okay, you can, this committee, yeah, we decided we don't like the one the planning commission sent. We recommend council denies it. And then we're requesting a resolution to go to the planning commission.
I just have to
An
put it in the report.
alternate version. Yeah, you can just put that in the report.
Okay.
Yeah, and then whenever we're able to, or whenever Keith or whoever is not swamped by everything else.
Maybe March.
have any of our food truck folks been able to take a look at this?
No. I wanted to get your all's opinion on it
Oh,
in
sure,
terms
sure.
of if we wanted to, I didn't want to show it to folks and then think this is a finalized document that's definitely happening. I wanted to make sure that we made any edits.
I just want to make sure, because I mean, it looks like it works for me, but I don't have a food truck, so I don't know that.
I feel comfortable saying that as of right now, it has addressed most of the concerns that have been brought to us.
Perfect.
It seems good.
But yeah, I'm happy to. Can we show this to people?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know I didn't know if there was some sort of legality about that.
And as long as we're not in executive session, which we're not. then-
I mean, it's
Yeah.
technically, because it's communication, you and me, that would be attorney-client privilege, but this is designed to be seen and discussed by other people, so that's fine, yeah. And yeah, in order for any of this to work, there needs to be an understanding and comments from the people that are running the businesses and the people in the building department, as far as whether this makes sense for them.
Yeah.
Has Ralph been, Ralph Wolf is our building manager, because he has started since this conversation began.
I have not spoken with him
okay.
about this.
He would be a good person to loop in at some point. He just has another lens that he looks through.
I guess we'll.
So I think our next steps are gonna be, if we want to, I will report this out at the next council meeting and make our recommendation to council. And then ideally it will be put on the agenda for the next council meeting after that. And then in the meantime, if we would like to share it with any of the truck owners, I can send it to Amy to see if she will translate it for us, at least this portion that we've changed. So we've got it in Spanish and English. And she does legal translation for a living, so I think that will be great and helpful.
That's awesome.
Would be helpful.
Yes,
Just to-
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did talk through the definition with her and she felt comfortable with it.
It's a definition of something like this is, we'll jump through all the hoops, and 8 months from now, 9 months from now, we'll have a new ordinance, and then something will come up that doesn't quite fit. But
Yeah.
that's the way the definitions always work.
We got to keep lawyers in business.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything else food truck related? Because that's the only item on the agenda.
It's the only thing we have.
Marvelous. Okay, I think we will adjourn, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.